This is the power of pro wrestling. A podcast by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Robert Red.
And I'm Chris Heineken. Thank you for joining us. We are right here on ShoutEngine.com. And hey, you can also catch us on iTunes and Android for Google Play. This and all other episodes are found right here. It's the power of pro wrestling. If you want to check us out, SoundEngine.com / the power of pro wrestling.
Yes.
Well, we got a whole lot to get to, folks, but we have some Shield business to take care of, don't we?
Well, we do, but before we get into that, how you been doing, Mr. Cornbread?
I've been awesome. How are you?
I've been doing good. Like you said, we got some business to get into. We're going to start with the Great Debate. And the topic for this week's edition of the Great Debate, like you mentioned, is going to be the Shield. Now, on this edition of Raw, this past Monday's edition of Raw, the Shield reformed. So we're going to be debating if the Shield should have reformed or should not reform. So you are going to debate why the Shield shouldn't reform, and you'll have 2 minutes to do that. I'm going to debate why they should have reformed, and I'll have 2 minutes to do that. So, as always, I'm going to let you start. You have 2 minutes to debate why the Shield should have not reformed.
In my opinion, they reformed too early. I mean, when I say too early, I understand you're trying to combine two different storylines into one deal, especially when there's tag team titles and intercontinental titles on the line. I understand that. But reforming them too early, yes, it's way too early for it. Should have they reformed on Monday night? Absolutely not. Should they have waited to reform to where the big money really is? Yes. Desperation for WWE? Absolutely. Because we end up crunching the numbers down. Courtesy of my boys at the Forbes deal. And guess what? Since the Shield reformed, and this is why I say they should not have reformed this early. You can reform, but don't reform right now. Reform at Mania. That's what give you your biggest pop. Here's why they should do it. Here's why they should not have reformed. If they would have reformed with the Miz versus the Miz and the Bar like they did this past Monday in Indy, understand the whole Indy deal as far as the Shield's concerned, then they've only made $3.68 million because of it. If you were to reform, if you were to put Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at a WrestleMania, and if that was the case, of course, we have some tumbling down in the background. That's why this debate is so insane.
Yeah.
If you were to reform with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, if that was your highlight of a WrestleMania, you can have Ambrose, and if you plan on having Brock Lesnar drop the title to Reigns, that would be your best scenario because think of this. Money-wise, it would have taken that deal from $3.68 million to anywhere between $12 and $17.3 million just at a WrestleMania alone, and Monday Night Raw following would have benefited from it. Now, should they reform at Mania? Absolutely, especially in a title match. But now, absolutely not. Desperation by WWE.
Okay, well, that's a great argument, Mr. Cornbread. That's why I loved having you on this episode. You're going to bring your A game, but I disagree with you. The Shield should have definitely reformed. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to keep this simple. 3 simple reasons. First off, the easiest reason. It's nostalgia. People love nostalgia. The Shield is a nostalgia act. They have been clamoring for this for about a year now. They kind of teased the Shield reunion at Survivor Series. If you remember, you had Roman and Seth on one show, and you had Dean on the other. And they were in the Survivor Series match. That was for kind of brand supremacy. And you had Dean Ambrose kind of help Roman and Seth, I think, powerbomb like AJ or someone who they were feuding with. So it was definitely something they should have done. So, I mean, just for the nostalgia factor is why they should have reformed. That's why I disagree with you on. Two, another reason why they should have reformed is going to help fill out the main event scene when Lesnar is gone. Right now, Lesnar's the Universal Champion, and he's not around a lot right now. I hate that, but in his absence, you need something that's going to fill out the main events and draw people in. Now, I do like Enzo and stuff like that. A lot of people find him annoying, but you need main event guys that will fill out the main event scene. They're not really doing that on Raw, but with not having Lesnar around the Universal Champion, you can have the Shield have those main events, and you can do those 6-man tags, and they can be the workhorses again like they used to be in years past. So that's another reason why the Shield should have reformed. Now, the final reason I'm saying the Shield should have reformed is to help get Reigns over as a top star. Like you mentioned, it's been rumored that Roman Reigns is going to be fighting Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. What better way to get Reigns over as a babyface? He's starting to get over those last few weeks, but to ensure that he's going to get over and be a babyface when he faces Brock Lesnar come WrestleMania time, put him in the Shield, which was a beloved faction where he got cheered along with Seth and Dean. So it just makes the most sense to bring the Shield back to prepare him for that main event, to get him over with the fans so he will be cheered and not booed like he was at WrestleMania 32. So, I mean, those are my 3 reasons why the Shield should reform, and I totally disagree with you that this was the perfect time to do it, because you're going to start having it done now. You have those months of build that you can get Roman into the spot to where the fans are going to get behind him and cheer him when it comes to WrestleMania time, when he's going to eventually beat Brock Lesnar.
Will that produce sellouts?
Well, I mean, the Shield is a nostalgia act with everything, so yeah, it will. I guarantee it will.
Do you honestly think that the following Monday Night Raws and the pay-per-views and house shows where Shield's advertised, and especially with Madison Square Garden coming up in the month of December, do you honestly think that the Shield being back together is going to sell out all of those arenas, including Madison Square Garden?
Well, I mean, WWE and a product itself has been down in itself, but I mean, the Shield is going to help sell those events, and definitely with them being back together. Now, granted, having 3 guys together or in one faction versus having them separate as solo stars can kind of hurt business, but it's just great to have them together as a unit because they are an over trio or faction.
Will they pull the DX factor?
What do you mean by that?
DX breaks up.
The back
for
together,
a couple of years,
back together,
then back together. That deal dissolves. Then another nostalgia act. You bring them back reformed. They become the tag team champs for the first time as a unit, and then dissolve them again.
I mean, it's possible that might happen. I mean, you don't know. It's gonna depend on how business is doing in a year, like when they break up, or a year or two, whether or not they would reform them or not. I mean, I'm sure they'll probably get reformed again years in the future. It's just going to depend where business is as to who their top stars are. It's just, there's a lot of factors I can't predict right now to whether or not they would get reformed or not.
Well, we have some top 5 coming up, and hey, you might not want to miss this one.
Yeah.
We got some top 5s that will open your eyes up to watch wrestling this week.
Yeah, you definitely want to stay tuned. Our top 5 moments are coming up next, so don't go anywhere.
This is John Ray, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast.
Welcome back to the show. Brace yourselves. It's now time for our top 5. With all the exciting action happening this week, we'll be counting down our favorite moments from 5 to 1, starting with
number 5.
Okay, Cornbread, what is your number 5 moment for the week?
My number 5, we'll go back to my great debate. And my number 5, I'm going to the bottom of the list on this one. And that'll be the Shield reforming. And here's why. If you really think about it, even though Indianapolis, Indiana, what I know is the Market Square Arena, formerly, if you get my Reggie Miller, John Starks reference, granted, there was a building where the Shield came together and made their debut in a title match. Well, here's the thing. Here's a crazy, interesting thing about the Shield reforming. Now, some points of your argument I will agree with, but here's another one. This really points out to me. Monday Night Raw, normally on the 3-hour Monday Night Raw, they have lost anywhere from 400,000 to literally 725,000 people, especially viewers, every single week. With the Shield reforming, they've only lost this past Monday. They've only lost a total of 297,000. That loss got cut drastically. But here's the craziest thing about the whole deal. This is why this is number 5. Raw ended up at an average of 2.871 million viewers. Overall, 3 hours. SmackDown, on the other hand, which to me was not a better show than Raw, in my opinion. They ended up with, get this staggering number, 4.494 million viewers. But yet, they could not beat Monday Night Raw. Viewer-wise, my goodness, yes. But just for this being number 5 and the Shield reforming, the fact that they cut that loss down to only 297,000 viewers, that's why it's my number 5. Even though I loved their destruction of both Braun Strowman and The Miz in the Bar. That's my number 5. Sorry about that. Yours, number 5.
Okay, well, that's a good number 5. You might be seeing that later on in my countdown, spoiler alert, but my number 5 is actually coming from SmackDown that you were talking about, and it was the main event for the U.S. title between Baron Corbin and AJ Styles.
I did love that match. Go ahead.
I've not been a big fan of Baron Corbin per se. I think he's just a big guy that gets a pass because he worked in the NFL or stuff, but this match on SmackDown Tuesday night was a great match. Working with AJ Styles, I think, really helped them out. I loved it. Very good competitive match. It ended in a clean finish. Yes, it was a good match. Not as good as the others on my list. That's why I have it as number 5, but it still made the cut for this week as number 5. Now, the Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens promo was another great thing from SmackDown. It didn't make my list. I enjoyed that. And the tag team promo at the beginning of the show was another great thing from SmackDown, but it didn't make the list either. I wanted to go with a match rather than a promo segment. Those two were strong, but I felt the strength of the match was better than those promos, so that's why I put it at number 5.
Number 4.
Okay, Cornbread, what is your number 4 moment for the week?
My number 4 takes me to Lucha Underground. And this one was Ultimate Lucha Tres Part 3. And my number 4 is the Trios Championship. The Reptile Tribe, try saying that 3 times, versus the Matt Killshot, and we know in the Independents it's AR Fox, but to Lucha Underground, he's Dante Fox. The fact that Dario Cuello decided to reunite the Mac with one of his cousins, if you truly study Lucha Underground, the fact that he decided to reunite the Mac with one of his cousins, and then one of his cousins who has a feud with Dante Fox from his days to a war. Those two were already previously injured in a previous match on Ultimate Lucha Tres, which in my opinion ended up as Match of the Year candidate. But this one, I put on here injured but inspired. Ultra competitive. It was insane. Matt Killshot, Dante Fox, new Trios champion. That's my number 4 deal. I gave it a 10 on my scale. That's my number 4, but enough about me. You got a number 4, and what is it?
Okay, I've got a number 4. You might be seeing that also on my list later on. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Yeah, and just to let you guys know, we do not look at each other's lists.
Amen.
So we are oblivious to what each other's going to say. So
Absolutely.
I'm just letting you know. But to get to my number 4, it's from Monday Night Raw. It's main event. It's the first ever Cruiserweight Championship match at main event between Enzo Amore and Kalisto. So, for the significance, that's why it made the list at number 4, but it also was a good competitive match. The added element of the Lumberjacks on the outside of the ring made it a good match, but it was good. And with it being a gimmick match, a lot of people said it's kind of hidden Enzo's lack of in-ring ability, but it was still a good match. I love the finish of the match with the Super Salida del Sol, or I believe you refer to as the Super
Shiradu, or if you want to translate to English, Super Sliced Bread number 2. But go ahead.
So, I mean, it was just that. It was a very strong match. It was more, I got more emotionally invested in that match than I did the Baron Corbin and AJ Styles match. So that says something. I've been an Enzo fan, but I'm just, the booking right now has kind of got me scratching. People are still cheering for him, although he's cutting down all the cruiserweight. So I'm like kind of confused here, and with him supposedly having heat, scratching my head on the booking. But I mean, it was a good competitive match, and I got more emotionally invested in it than I did my number 5. That's why I put this match at number 4.
Well, very quickly, before we get to our number 4 pick,
Number 3 pick, you mean?
I say number 3 pick. We're still on number 4. Do you think, with the cruiserweights at least being in the main event spot of Monday Night Raw to close the show, do you think that somehow that should at least boost the cruiserweight stocking? Or do you think it was probably the start of the beginning of the end?
I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I mean, ideally, WWE is trying to treat them like they're a lot better than what they have been treated in months gone by. They're giving them the main events, like Enzo, since he's joined the Cruiserweight division. He's got them the closest show.
That was the key component right there.
Oh, 3 different weeks. So, I mean, you would hope that they would rise in stock and people would be a little more emotionally invested in them. But I just think the status quo is going to stay. They're not going to go anywhere because I don't think people are really going to care about 205 Live unless they let the cruiserweights break out like they let Enzo fight The Miz a few weeks back, and that was perfect because But
that was on different circumstances before he got demoted to the cruiserweights.
Well, he was a cruiserweight at that point, so I mean, it doesn't matter. But I mean, I think the status quo is going to stay here. I think it's not. You're not really going to. Although they've been getting main events, I don't think they're really going to go anywhere.
Number 3.
Okay, Cornbread, what's your number 3?
My number 3 takes me to Ring of Honor. Yeah, you'll be seeing this more in this countdown. My number 3 goes to Ring of Honor, and surprisingly enough, it's not a match in my number 3. This is what happened at the end of the show. Tommy Dreamer appears to Mr. Jay Briscoe and cuts, to me, one of the realest promos I've seen Dreamer cut in a long, long time. It was a reality check for the fact that, no pun intended, Justin LeBar.
Reality check.
No pun intended, Justin LeBar. But this was a reality check to Jay Briscoe simply for the fact that Briscoe turned on Bully Ray and literally smacked the table right into the concussive spot at the Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view in Vegas. That most would say woke up the sleeping giant. Because a lot of people did not know, but Bully Ray lost his mother about 3 months ago. And Jay Briscoe, not having his head on straight, picked the wrong time to turn. Now, will this affect the Briscoes? You doggone right it will. But will this boost up Jay Briscoe's stock as becoming a 3-time Ring of Honor World Champion? Absolutely. That's my number 3. What's yours?
Okay, my number 3 actually goes back to your number 5 and what we debated in the first segment. It's the Shield reunion. And normally when I like to rank the list, I'd like to put matches over promos because to me, matches are more important than promos. But it was just the fact of the Shield finally reuniting and just the strength of that is why it was number 3. Like I mentioned in my debate, I'm not going to beat the horse to death here since I've already talked about it in the first segment.
Of course.
But it's just the Shield, they've been teasing reforming since last year, and they were a great nostalgia act, like I mentioned in my debate. So just based on the strength of that, them and their destruction of the Bar, the Miz, and then Braun Strowman, them getting a TLC match at the TLC pay-per-view, which is happening not this Sunday, but next Sunday on the premiere of Walking Dead. So
yeah, there'll be a war.
Yeah, that's going to be a war there. Literally, you'll have the TLC, and then you have the war in Walking Dead.
Absolutely.
So, with that, I mean, just the strength of them reforming and what they did throughout Monday night, it was a very exciting moment, and it got me pumped for them being back together and then having new merch. It was something exciting to watch, so that's why I put it as my number 3 moment.
Number 2.
Okay, Cornbread, we're wrapping up. What's number 2 for you?
Number 2, I'm going to Impact Wrestling on this one. Normally, I would go Garza Jr. versus Johnny Impact, which was featured in the main event, which was an awesome match with the winner challenging Eli Drake for the title at Bound for Glory November 5th on pay-per-view in Ottawa, Canada. Surprisingly enough, what happened at the end made my head turn. And that was when Moose decided to make a phone call to UFC legend Stephen Bonner and decided to invade Bobby Lashley's training camp known as America's Top Team. They did it at night, and I was like, oh, snap. They got pipes. Who is Moose finna call? Because that was the big debate on who does Moose have in his back pocket. You're thinking he might go with D'Angelo Williams or somebody. He went with America's Top Team's most hated rival, and that's Stephen Bonner. Now, some people ask, why this choice? Because if you really think about it, that's tying in a wrestling storyline, which is Moose versus Lashley, and an MMA storyline, which is Variations of America Top Team versus Stephen Bonner. You're combining those two into one, and it actually made for an excellent promo, that excellent segment. And honestly, that really made for, if you're combining two different sports, there's different storylines into one deal, and using Impact Wrestling as your pretty much as your canvas or your battleground for that, I think that's going to work on both sides, because UFC and Bellator will have no other choice but to recognize Impact Wrestling. And Impact Wrestling, on the other hand, will have no other choice but to recognize Bellator because of Bobby Lashley and Kobe Covington, and UFC because of Stephen Bonner. That's my number 2. I was excited about this. Surprisingly, that wasn't my number 1. But that's my number 2. But you got a number 2, and I'm anxious to hear what this one is.
Well, let's just say it's going to come from Ring of Honor, but it's not going to be what you picked for Ring of Honor.
Go for it.
I'm picking the main event, I believe. It wasn't the main event, but it was the main event match, if I can put it that way. It's for the 6-man titles between the
Bucks and Hangman Page.
Yeah, and Hangman Page, the Hung Bucks, I believe is what they're calling themselves.
Yes, the Hung Bucks.
Against Silas Young, the last real man, the Beer City Bruiser, and Minoru Suzuki, who is still there from the match he had with Cody Rhodes at, I believe, Death Before Dishonor.
The pay-per-view.
So, just a very great competitive match between the two. My favorite spot was when they did the whole Kimura. Since you were mentioning MMA, you had, I think Minoru put a Kimura to somebody, and then you had...
You get a Kimura.
Or you get a Kimura. I know when I was watching it on Monday, we were kind of making the Oprah joke. It's like, you get a Kimura, you get a Kimura, you get a Kimura. So, it was just a great competitive match, and just a spot between... everybody giving them the Kimura it was great. So that's why I liked it, and I had to put it as my number 2. I love the Shield, and I would have normally put them higher on, but like I said, I like to pick matches over the promos and stuff like that and segments. So that's why I put it as number 2.
Number 1.
Okay, drum roll. What's your number 1 moment for the week, Mr. Cornbread?
Your number 2 became my number 1. The invention of Hung Bucks during this whole deal was really intriguing, and the fact that you decided to take a member from Suzuki Gun, which is Minoru, and then triple submission holds, like you said earlier, you get a Kimura, another guy comes in, you get a Kimura, another guy comes in, you get a Kimura. And the fact that Beer City Bruiser and Adam Page were the stars of this match. And to me, what many people would say Adam Cole and the Bucks were the best as a 3-man team, I would have to totally disagree, because Adam Page and the Bucks are the better 3-man team, and rightfully so, they're the 6-man champions. I love this teamwork. I loved everything about it. Ultra competitive. This was an awesome deal, and the shooting star melts into the floor? Really? And Suzuki doing sit-ups while he has a guy in the figure 4 leg lock inside the ring post. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's my number 1. This is my top match of the year candidate. That's my number 1. What's yours?
My number 1 is actually going to be, spoiler alert, like I said, you said it earlier in the show. It is from Lucha Underground, and it is for the Trios Championships. It's the Reptile Tribe versus Mac, Fox, and Killshot.
That overshots the ladder match, doesn't it?
Yeah, I like the Gift of the Gods ladder match. It was a good match between Son of Havoc and my boy Pentagon Dark, Cerro Miedo, for my Spanish-speaking friends out there, Zero Fear. But I like this match a lot better. I love the story going into it, because you had the Hell of War match that I mentioned, I believe was my number 1 from a week or 2 ago.
Oh, yeah.
Then last week you had the Mac win Unique Opportunity from Dario Cueto. And it is for the Trios Championship, and his partners had to be Dante Fox and Killshot. So just the story going into it, them being underdogs, having to fight the Rabbit Tribe, or the Reptile Clan or Tribe, or whatever you want to call, to try to win the Trios Championship. I love the story, and it was a great match, and just everything about it. To me, it was kind of my favorite moment of the week. I don't want to take anything away from my boy Pentagon Dark and Son of Havoc, but that was my number 1 moment for the week.
And that was a great match. Well, we do have some rapid fire coming up, and what's on tap for rapid fire?
Well, rapid fire is going to be interesting. I'm going to tell you next what it is. this, so you want to stay tuned. So don't go anywhere. Rapid Fire is next.
Hey, this is Kevin Lancaster, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast.
Welcome back to the show. It's now time for the fastest segment of the show, Rapid Fire. For this edition of Rapid Fire, we'll be giving our predictions on who will end Asuka's undefeated streak. So let's start with, that's going to be the topic, guys, for Rapid Fire.
This is going to be interesting.
Asuka's set to make her main roster debut at TLC pay-per-view. So for this edition of Rapid Fire, I want to discuss some women who we think would end Asuka's undefeated streak. So I'm going to start with her first opponent, Emma. Do you think Emma's going to be the one that ends the streak?
The answer to this question is no. Not for Emma. Unless if she has a hidden submission hole and can kick the brains out of Asuka, no. Not going to happen.
I agree. Emma's not going to be the one to beat Asuka's undefeated streak. Her stock has been really low right now. She wasn't able to do it in NXT, so why is she going to be able to do it now? Yeah, right. She does. She has a submission hold, remember, because she uses the dilemma, which is
absolutely
is the Muda lock, but
absolutely.
It's not going to beat Asuka ending her streak. So let's go to Bayley, the person that Asuka beat for the NXT Women's title.
If Bayley can go back and rewatch the Iron Woman match from NXT with her and Sasha Banks, and if she can honestly duplicate the ending of that match, which ended up being the match of the year candidate, if she can reduplicate that to Asuka, I say the answer would be yes. She has a huge possibility. If she has no submission hold, absolutely not. But if she has that submission hold, where honestly she could kick Asuka's brains out, and she does. She has the opportunity. She's got the submission hold. WWE's not letting her use it. If they let her use it, then the streak's over.
Okay. Bayley is a maybe for me. So maybe yes, she might be able to do it. But her stock has really fell. She was very hot in NXT, very beloved babyface. She's come to Raw, and her stock has really fell, especially the last several months. People started to boo Bayley, and I was like, this is not good for Bayley. So I don't know if they're going to let Bayley do it. If they can get Bayley's stock back up, Bayley could potentially end the streak, but I don't see it happening. Okay, let's move on to the Golden Girl. Woo! Charlotte Flair.
This one's tricky for me. I will give this probably a 50-50 chance for Charlotte. And the reason being is I think she has a little bit more to her repertoire, and because of her leg size and all, she can escape a lot of Asuka's stuff, but I don't think the figure eight's going to get it done. That's why I'm saying it's a 50-50.
If anyone has a chance to defeat Asuka and end the streak, the person who has the best chance to do it is Charlotte Flair. She is seen as pretty much the face of the women's division. You don't have the Bellas there to do it.
Despite the fact that Natalia's the quote-unquote champion.
Yeah, the champion.
And Bliss is the Raw versus
but I mean, Charlotte has the most stock. She's the daughter of Ric Flair, so I mean,
and she would the best pay-per-view streak.
She would be the most likely to end Asuka's streak, so I could see her as a definite possibility of ending the streak. Whether or not she'd be able to do it or not, I don't know, but she has the best opportunity to do it. But let's switch over to the SmackDown Women's Champion, Natalya.
No. Easy answer. Easy answer for me. Absolutely not.
Natty, I mean, she does have the pedigree and lineage from being the daughter of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and then Stu Hart being her grandfather. She does have the lineage there, but I just don't know if she has the tenacity that it's going to take to defeat Asuka. So I'm going to say probably not, that she won't be able to end the streak. Okay, let's move on to the boss, Sasha Banks.
Again, another tricky one for me. If she applies the Banks statement in its most deadliest form, then yes. But she needs something else other than the Banks statement, especially if you're going to really, really defeat Asuka. Now, she can defeat Asuka with the knees, because Asuka's been known to be worn down with knee strikes. And Sasha has knees. Bottom line, she doesn't depend on them all the time, but Sasha Banks does have the knees. I will give it a possibility of a yes if she utilizes the Banks statement to its tap-out form. If not, it's all Asuka's.
Okay. I think she has a chance of doing it just for the simple fact of it. She's Sasha Banks. She is somewhat beloved by WWE. She's not as beloved as Charlotte Flair. If her stock can get back to where she was going, she might be able to beat Asuka. And like you said, just from an in-ring standpoint, she might be able to do it. She does have the Banks statement to do that, and then the knees and stuff. So she could potentially do that, but I don't know if she's going to do it. Now let's end with the last of the four horsewomen, Miss Becky Lynch.
Using Gordon Soley terminology, God bless Gordon, there are four legs of a table. If you remove one of the legs, then you take away a point of balance, a point of attack, a point of defense, and a point of offense. If you work on the arm, if she works on the arm relentlessly like the Andersons, throwback Andersons. Not that one, but throwback Andersons. She has a possibility. Now, whether she does or not, I don't know. I say she has a possibility if she works on the arm. But to me, she needs to take away the legs. Because if you take away the legs of Asuka, Asuka can't kick you. If she can't kick you, she can't beat you. So to me, I think working on Asuka's legs would help Becky in this case. But if she really works on the arm and works on the shoulder joint and know your tap out points, she could actually pull off the upset.
Okay. I agree. I think Becky could do it. Whether or not it will happen or not, I don't know. I don't know how WWE stock in Becky seems to be right now. So she might can do it. I just don't know if
it's kind of
she would or
moderate
not.
as far as her stock is concerned. It's kind of moderate.
Yeah. But that's all the time we have for the show. You can definitely check us out on social media. You can find me on Facebook at Robert Lee Red Jr., Twitter at Robert Red Jr. I have Instagram. It is Robert Lee Red Jr., I believe, there as well. I have YouTube. It's youtube.com/user/the Robert Red.
And I'm on social media as well. I'm at twitter.com. I'm at Chris Heineken1 on Twitter. Excuse me.
Twitter?
Yes. No, the original Tweety Bird. I'm on Twitter. Facebook.com/The Real Cornbread. The name is Christopher David Heineken. And I'm at Osceola's Mid-Southern Championship Wrestling Friday nights at 8:15. And I'm at Out of Control Wrestling there in Hoxie on Saturday nights at 7:05.
Okay, and I'm also on Snapchat, MarkWonders85. If you want to add me, you can see some of my crazy snaps that I do on there. They just added a filter at the time of this recording, so I might go check that out. But like we mentioned at the top of the show, you want to go ahead and...
No, I was going to say, also, we will love your support. Your support of this show helps keep this show up and running and keep rolling. And it keeps us pushing the envelope as to what questions can we come up with. Because the bottom line is we don't look at a whole lot of others, news feeds or all that. Our questions come from hard work and dedication and stuff that really goes on behind the scenes when we're debating and looking up, stuff to help our debates and look up our top five. We actually sit down and actually watch the wrestling product as a whole. We're not all WWE based. And that's what makes this podcast so special. And this is why we need your support. Your support helps keeps us rolling. And for those of you who have supported this podcast and have supported us, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if by any chance you see any polls from either Robert Red or myself, we encourage you, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, we encourage you to vote. Because think about it. Your vote and your feedback lets us know how to prepare for our next shows and shows beyond. So we will love your support. Please support. We're at shoutengine.com. But hey, support us on our social media sites as well.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, we are on shoutengine.com. You can check this and every episode on at shoutengine.com/the power of pro wrestling. And since you were talking about reviews and stuff like that, leave us a review on iTunes if you're an iOS user. Then subscribe on iTunes, search The Power of Pro Wrestling, hit subscribe, it auto downloads, you get all the latest episodes. You do the same on Google Play.
Absolutely.
And if you are on iTunes and have an iOS device, leave us a review, and it will help us tell us how we're doing with the show, whether it's good or bad, indifferent. Just leave us feedback on there. We'll greatly appreciate it, and we'll definitely give you a shout out on our social medias. So...
Well, I guess that about wraps it up here for the Power Pro Wrestling, man. It's been a great episode.
Yes, it has. And as always,
we hope you enjoy it too.
Yeah, thank you for catching us, and you can catch us right here next time for the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast.